to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday, April 30th. We're back. Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined by Matthew Betz and Jason Moore.
Post-NFL draft rookie mock today. Excited to see where you guys have all these players ranked. Well, I know where Jason has them ranked. I don't know about Kyle, but I feel like
it is a little unfortunate whenever we go to our drafts. You know, we for the Foot Clan, we want to make sure that as soon as possible after the NFL draft, we have our, not just like a quick fun run through, but like our official determined projections and rankings as quickly as possible. But then we do our drafts, our rookie drafts go, and it's like, exactly who I would take next.
Yep. It's
because fun. You can see I publish it for the world.
The NFL draft was fun, guys. I don't know if you had a similar experience. I thought it was great. A lot of, I feel like, head scratchers at some picks, but there was nothing that was more certain than the boys of this podcast going on day 2, which I was sweating that. When we got to the second and third round, I was like, okay, here we go. Trey Harris, Jack Bech.
Yeah.
Second round draft capital. Yeah. Boys, we're back.
Yeah.
We're back.
Oh, man. Yeah, we are healing from the Troy Franklins of last year. I think those were the two guys that we brought up the most.
Yes.
That I felt like we were higher than consensus on this season was Bech and Harris. And it's always nice when the NFL echoes your thoughts and says, like, yeah, we like them pretty highly as well.
The Harris love, I feel like over the last month or so, we kind of tempered our expectations. Every single week on the podcast, we'd be like, well, we know we really like him, but we're just preparing. It was almost like we were just ready for the car wreck. And there they go at pick 55.
How sweet it is.
I mean, it's the Chargers. And over the years, I have way too soft of a spot for the Chargers. Keenan did this to me for years. So I'm expecting greatness. We love Ladd as well. So what could possibly go wrong with Trey Harris? But on this episode, we will walk through 2 rounds of a rookie mock. There is a Superflex mock draft that will also be up on the website. I participated in the Foot Clan. And it's just interesting to see what we thought a month and a half ago going through the process. And then solidifying the landing spots is the biggest part, but also like, okay, this is where I was slotted to go in my league draft. Like maybe you're the person that's like, I had the 106. And for the longest time, I didn't think Travis Hunter would be the player that would be on my board because a month and a half ago, I thought he was going to be a cornerback. And so everything changes. That's totally fine. Jason has all of his rankings updated along with Andy and Mike in there in the UDK Plus. It's there in the app. You can use them. And I'm in a draft right now, just so you guys know. We will get to that point where I will live pick in one of our drafts that you two are in with me right now. So maybe you're going to give me bad information.
That's the plan.
Yeah, that's your goal, is to just force us to have to tell you the truth because we're on this podcast for the people. But yes, we are all 3 in that active draft going right now. And being more specific, you are on the clock right now in the 6th pick of the 2nd round. And we'll see how that feels when we get there. We'll get to the second half of the 2nd round on today's podcast.
Everything has been updated in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. Our post-NFL draft update has all the risers and fallers, a new rookie mock draft, the rookie rankings. Everything is released, including all 32 teams. This was like this was a novel once again. But Betz, you and I got to walk through and update all of the contract situations, all the different players and what that means. But there's a lot of information in there, but it's fully loaded. It's all there. Some interesting teams like the Packers. They've done this for a couple years where they take multiple wide receivers in the same draft, and then we're supposed to figure out how 20 wide receivers work on the team. And
I figured it out.
It's none of them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of good games for all of them, and not enough for any one of them. I mean, that's how it's been forever. It's like Dobbs will show out and it'll be like, you know what, he's the clear number one target, and he's a weekly flex option. But obviously, look at this game. Christian Watson is the next big thing. He's the sensational touchdown threat, except no, clearly the best player is Jaden Reed. You know, it's just all recency bias. What did you see most recently? Who looked the best? That's who's going to be the best. And the reality is that they have a gigantic core of young, good wide receivers and a quarterback that is willing to spread the ball around. And they've added 2 more wide receivers to the mix, 1 first-round pick in Matthew Golden, and they're all going to eat into each other's production and be very frustrating, in my opinion.
Agreed. A better in best ball team. You don't have to pick the weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm excited for Jordan Love. Like I'm excited for maybe the TD rate, shifts back to what it was before. I have Josh Jacobs also in a dynasty. Like I like the offense. This is a top 10 offense in back-to-back years. It's just going to be weird sorting it out. So you can make sure you can go through all of those teams. And before we get into our mock draft, I wanted us to talk about a veteran winner from the draft. So somebody that wasn't a rookie that you are looking at in dynasty circles and saying, you know what? This person I would either be interested in acquiring or as an asset you should be excited about. So Betz, I will let you start first.
Yeah, I kind of cheated with this question. Instead of one specific player, I went with a crew of players, and it's basically the running back class from last season. Now, we would all agree last year's rookie running back class was terrible, outside of Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy, who was a really nice late round rookie pick last year. But collectively, you went into this draft with what everybody was saying was a very deep running back class. There was a pretty good chance these guys that didn't really do anything last year might get replaced as the RB2. But guys like Will Shipley with the Eagles, Trey Benson with the Cardinals, Marshawn Lloyd with the Packers we were just talking about, Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Isaac Grendo, Braylon Allen, they all look pretty good as like locked in RB2s on their team. And now in Dynasty, like they clearly need a lot to go right for them to have value as a starter. But injuries happen in the NFL every single year. And if anything happens to the running backs on the depth charts above these guys, I think the front offices and GMs, head coaches kind of told us that they still value these guys, even though last year was very, very disappointing. So you were holding on to Braylon Allen, Garendo, Jalen Wright being like, I don't know what they are. I feel like at least now we know that they are probably the RB2 on the depth chart, which, as like a throw-in on a trade, or just if you're trying to get your own RB2, like if you've got Brees and you want to get Braylon Allen or something like that, I feel like at least we kind of know that now with these guys. The only real running backs that are, air quotes, threat to those names that I mentioned was San Francisco took Jordan James in the 5th round. Miami took Ollie Gordon in the 6th round. So almost no investment in running backs to affect this crop of RB2. So I feel like if you got those guys, they at least have some value on your roster.
Yeah, the veteran winners are so often just the guys who didn't get someone else drafted with them. My veteran winners are another couple of running backs that you thought had a real chance to just completely be destroyed in DeAndre Swift, who I mean, prior to the draft, DeAndre Swift was pretty much dead to me. I mean, it was just so clear that they wanted a running back to be brought in, and he wasn't their guy. He's already worked with Ben Johnson before, and they wanted better than him. And then Chase Brown for the Bengals, they had a couple really important top 30 running back visits coming in, and there was, people were holding their breath. Those are 2 players now that are set up really well for short-term fantasy success. And in Chase Brown's, case, I think from a dynasty perspective, he has the opportunity to go out this year, be really special, and maybe have some more dynasty, a little bit longer-term outlook. I don't really look at running backs ever like long-term outlooks, but at least you see a path for him. And then shout out, obviously, I think this one is very chalk, but you cannot have had, I mean, you want to talk about like the most trimmed, and like this happened last year and he let us down, but Caleb Williams inherited the best situation any rookie quarterback has ever in the history of the NFL inherited, and he sucked with it. But this team came back and said, you know what? We're going to do it again. We're going to bring on 3 offensive linemen in free agency via trade and free agency, protect you. We're going to get you, another weapon on offense in Luther Burden III. And I mean, Caleb Williams is certainly set up here for success.
Don't forget about Colston
from the
Loveland,
draft.
10th overall.
Yeah, top 10 pick.
It was funny.
That's your dude, Betz.
That's my guy.
Yeah, you love him.
I do.
You would tell Tyler Warren that to his face, wouldn't you?
No, I would never do that.
Okay. What's weird about the Bears is that this last couple of months, we were basically like, okay, they hate Swift. We know they hate him. Okay. And maybe they'll go somewhere else. But really, it was Cole Kmet all along and DJ Moore. They said, you know what? I'm going to stick it to those guys. And they take players that are pretty much clones of them. Like the number one comp for Luther Burden was DJ Moore. And so you're just in an interesting situation with that team. But I think you're right. Like with Caleb Williams, the sacks were really bad last year, but he also didn't turn over the ball. Like his INT rate was just 1.1%. So if they just fix a couple different things, I think you're really, really happy that you held on to Caleb Williams, despite the fact that you're probably sad that you took him over Jaden Daniels last year. So real quick about Chase Brown. I have him in a league, and I just flipped him after the draft. Okay.
Oh,
and
nice.
I want to get your take on this because someone in my league approached me and said, "Hey, are you interested in this pick?" It was the 104 in a Superflex league. Okay, so I sent Chase Brown in a second round pick for the 104.
I love it.
I made out well, right?
I love it.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, the 104. So you're probably looking at T-Mac.
Okay, it was between T-Mac and Henderson.
Okay,
Because it's a super flex.
Yeah, sure. Travion Henderson. Yeah, I figured that the first three picks would be Cam Ward, Ashton Genty, and Amarian Hampton. Probably Ashton Genty, then Cam Ward, and then
Now,
Amarian.
the thing is, Chase Brown could certainly have a really good 2025, but I think long-term, the perspective you were having, Jason, is, is this like a Rashad White thing where we're going to see the best year and he doesn't get a contract extension, or James Cook, or one of these guys? It's like, you're really, really good, but the team's able to move on down the road. Like, it wouldn't shock me next year if the Bengals do take a running back on day one or day two to outfit. It's just they need a defense.
Chase Brown is 25. He was a little bit older for in his rookie year, so not helpful for that second contract.
All right, I just want to shout out Trevor Lawrence because I've never really been a huge proponent of Trevor Lawrence as a fantasy asset. And if you look so far through 4 seasons, he's yet to hit 18 fantasy points per game. Baker Mayfield is the only quarterback not to hit in his first 4 years to ever eventually surpass that number. So, like, if you don't do it early on, it's just not going to happen, especially at quarterback. Like, you can see it later with tight end or one of these positions where they go later. At quarterback, if you're not a difference maker in fantasy early on, we usually just kind of look somewhere else and say, okay, this is who they are. This is Derek Carr, whatever. But I think there is a jolt of life with Travis Hunter in the mix and Liam Cohen, who said right afterwards, he was talking about his draft. He goes, listen, I have a plan. Now it's primarily about offense. He was just like really blunt. Like, I don't know what we're doing on defense, but on offense, I have a plan. And he proved with Baker Mayfield and the rest of that roster that he could work with it. So I think Trevor Lawrence gets a big boost. He's the QB 17 right now in our ranks. And you can make an argument of him over J.J. McCarthy. I think I'd still rather have Baker than Trevor Lawrence, but it wouldn't shock me if at the end of this year, Trevor Lawrence outproduces Baker Mayfield.
I think that's a fair take. It's interesting that you make those parallels because Baker Mayfield just played with Liam Cohen and we saw what he did with all those skill position players there. So yeah, it's always tricky when you start to make excuses for guys early in their career and say, oh, well, this happened because of that. And, they'll turn it around. I do feel like his rookie year, we can that was the Urban Meyer experience. Let's just forget about that. But then, you saw a quarterback 8 finish in 2022. So it is in the range of outcomes for it to happen if things break right. Immediately, this Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter tandem, we'll see how much they play him at wide receiver, but that's up there with some of the best wide receiver tandems in the league, in my opinion. So I love it. Yeah, we'll see. I think he's going to be a value in drafts just because people are still kind of hanging on to what he had done previously, which I'm not saying you shouldn't, but a forward-thinking dynasty manager can see the writing on the wall that this could be one of his best fantasy seasons of his career.
I mean, he's younger than Tyler Shuck, so we got to keep that in mind, right?
Yeah, I'm younger than Tyler Shuck.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll jump into our mock.
Fantasy Footballers Mock Draft.
We're going to be hopping into a 1 quarterback rookie mock draft. And like I mentioned, we have a Superflex one up on the website that I participated in with the Foot Clan. Going to give you some insights if you're one of those people it's like, this changes everything. It changes a little bit, but not everything. So we have some Superflex strategy on the website. The order is going to go Betz, Jason, and then myself, and we will just repeat going through there. Betz, you have the 101, which I think is very good timing because you had the 101 in the league and you traded it.
I did. And it hurt because, man, like all the last 2 weeks, I've been looking at this roster. I'm like, Ashton Genty's going to go right here, RB1 spot. And it's a team that just won last year. So I flipped the pick, kind of a package trade to get it this previous season. But this was like an unbelievable, just slide him in there, going to be a great player. And that's who I would take at 101. And I think everybody should. But an opportunity came, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I have to pounce on this. Somebody came to me and said, is this pick for sale? It's like, I'll listen to anything. If you're willing to overpay, like I'm willing to listen. So the offer that I kind of countered, we went back and forth. It was Terry McLaurin that I had, this pick, so Ashton Genty, for Bijan and CeeDee Lamb. And they were like, we're close, but like let's do a 27 first and a 2026 second swap. 2027 might have some studs, but I know for sure CeeDee Lamb, who's in his prime, Bijan Robinson in his prime are absolute studs. So I made the trade. I flipped Genty and McLaurin, who I think might regress this year and also is obviously not the youngest guy in the league.
You've always spoken bad about McLaurin.
I love him so much, man. It was so happy for me to finally see him do something in the league. But
that is an awesome trade.
I had to do it.
No, that is so brilliant. The hype on Genty, like you got paid on the hype. So if he ends up being every ounce of that hype, it's okay because you got paid on that. If he ends up being really, really, really good, but not the hype, that's just a home run because obviously Bijan right now you're looking at a top 3 running back in redraft. The next several years it projects that way, and then CeeDee Lamb is basically that way as well. You got Chase Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb that in my world are kind of a class of their own. That's amazing.
I also just did the team opportunity like a few minutes before the trade came through on Dallas, and it was like shocking how terrible the depth chart is behind CeeDee Lamb. So like he might see
it's okay. They had their draft.
He might see 250
and
targets.
In the draft they really addressed it.
So yes, my advice to people out there: if you have the 101, obviously Genty is an incredible pick, but do not be afraid to float it out there because somebody might overpay.
And now you get to root for the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I don't recommend.
That's terrible.
But I also think you can break down the trade of if Genty becomes Bijan, that's cool. Like, that's awesome. But I know that Bijan's good. And then you could break down the trade, McLaurin in the first for CeeDee Lamb. I'd rather have CeeDee Lamb. And so it's easy to kind of do that rather than just, put the 101 or the 2027 first. Those are just random things we're throwing out there. You can solidify it. So you would take Ashton Genty the 101. All of us would do that. I haven't seen him not go in the 101 in every single mock or every single draft I've done. So Jason, you're up.
Yeah, he is a truly consensus. In all formats, even in Superflex, you see him go ahead of Cam Ward. I'm going to take Omarion Hampton here at the 2 spot. Is pretty easy for me, and most drafts that I have seen, that is how it goes. It goes Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton, and then in single quarterback leagues, I think there is question here at the 3rd spot between 2 players, usually.
Yes. Now, Hampton, I just want to pause here for a second because Mike behind the scenes has just been kind of asking me like, hey, is there any way we can poke holes in Omarion Hampton? Because, Henderson has been his guy. And I think he
wants to hate Omarion. He wants, like deep in his soul, he is rooting against Omarion Hampton. And it's not, it's really just because he thinks Travion Henderson is so much better than Omarion Hampton.
His love.
And he wants it to be true.
Yeah, his love for Henderson looks like hate.
He thinks Travion Henderson is Jahmyr Gibbs. That's what's going on. He thinks that it is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Is he?
No, he's not.
Oh. I just drafted Henderson. I need to hear something good.
I'm not saying Travion Henderson is bad. I love Travion Henderson, but he's not Jahmyr Gibbs. There's a reason why 32 teams passed on him in the first round, whereas Jahmyr Gibbs went, 12?
And the Jets apparently were going to take him at 15 if the Lions did not that year. So it was like, he's going top 15. Can you poke any holes in Amari Hampton? Not really. Like, maybe in the first 6 weeks, Najee gets more work than you want, but this is a first-round running back. If you pretty much blindly bet on first-round running backs and you don't even do the nitty-gritty of their metrics, they're all fantasy studs. And Hampton's metrics in our profiles are awesome. So it's a great offensive line, great quarterback play, a coaching staff that wants to run the football. I can't really poke any holes.
Yeah, you don't overthink it.
Right.
I mean, it's a great prospect going to a great team with great draft capital. Like, Najee is the big problem, and just think about what those words sound like.
Exactly.
I think I've seen this question from a lot of people. They're saying, hey, I have the 102 and I'm rebuilding. I know I'm rebuilding, and running backs aren't a great asset to have. So shouldn't I take the wide receiver anyways? At the end of the day, a year from now, Marion Hampton's going to be a very valuable player in startups. So if you want to flip him then, that's totally fine. Maybe, people in your league right now view him as like a top 10 back. Next year, we could be talking about him as a top 5 startup pick at running back. So I don't mind that there. The 103 is where I'm at. And Jeremy and I had the 103 in the Ballers Made Dynasty League, and we had a real conversation going back and forth of, should we take McMillan here, even though we're stockpiled at wide receivers, or should we go with the depth of either Judkins or Henderson? And this was really, really tough for us to go back and forth. We went with McMillan simply because a top 10 wide receiver, the hit rate's just so good. It's really, really good. And I don't care about the landing spot that much. Our studies have shown that we overvalue landing spot. We use Miami as the example for years, Jalen Waddle. At the end of the day, they chose this guy as an alpha. I think he's going to be fed like an alpha. 8th overall pick. So I'm going to take Tet McMillan here, but I can understand if somebody wants to take one of the running backs here.
For sure. No arguments for me on any of that stuff. I think T-Mac's an awesome pick this year.
All right, Betz.
Are you saying that you're saying that a top 10 dynasty wide receiver is like worth his weight in gold, or are you saying a top 10 NFL drafted wide receiver has a good hit rate?
I think it has a good hit rate of, players that were consensusly thought to go there. The guys that were reaches, the John Ross, the, Corey Davis, all that stuff, were not mocked there at all. And yet everybody who was a top 12 consensus pick before the draft and then went in the top 10 have been an unreal hit rate. And I can give us the names later, but it's like
I can see some right now. You got just going back year over year. I mean, this last year, I don't know, Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, TBD. I still believe in both of them. Obviously, Malik Neighbors was great. The year prior, no top 10. The year prior, you had Drake London and Garrett Wilson. They look like, obviously, relative hits. You've got Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, hit. Yeah, no, it looks like you're pretty much right. I think Corey Davis comes to mind as a failure.
Yes.
He was not a bad NFL wide receiver, but certainly a failure
but he was not projected to go that high. And I guess I've been in the weeds of what is projected draft capital and which teams just went over the moon. And I give you the list right here, but every single guy that was projected to go in the top 10 is, I would call, a stud. It's Travis Hunter, Marvin Harrison, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith. That's the list over the last decade. Not the guys that were like, oh gosh, why was John Ross selected there? So I feel safe with McMillan. I think most people do at 103.
Yeah, I think he's a rock solid pick. I think the consensus selection here is going to be running back for most people. I'm going to take Travis Hunter because, well, you just listed all the top 10 wide receivers that are hit rates. This man was taken 2nd overall, and I know that there is the cornerback thing and all that stuff. If you listen to any of the early pressers from Liam Cohen and their GM, it is all about offense with Travis Hunter. So I know Brian Thomas Jr. is there, but this guy is an absolute unicorn and an unreal playmaker, and that's all they talked about in their pressers is the playmaking ability and supporting Trevor Lawrence. So, yes, I think there's a chance he could play some corner, intermittently throughout the season or in different games, depending on what happens. But I think the plan for them is going to say, let's start at offense and let's build him up there, and then we'll figure it out. And so I get it if somebody wants to take a running back here, maybe Travion Henderson. That draft capital, this new regime, I'm very excited for Travis Hunter.
Yeah, you can't really complain, I think, about any of the first 6 picks or so in the draft. They all look really, really strong. For me, at the 103, I'd probably be going Travion Henderson over those 2 wide receivers. So here at the 105, I'm going to take Travion Henderson. I think there's also an argument you can make between him and Quinshon Judkins. My pre-NFL draft takes were, I like Travion Henderson a lot more than Judkins. Judkins had better draft capital, not by much, but I'm still going to prefer the more explosive, juicy player with pass catching, projection in Henderson over the Judkins. It's like taking a look at the Lions and saying, do you want the Jamar Gibbs or do you want the David Montgomery? Both are good. I want David Montgomery, but I want Jamar Chase for sure more. And neither landing spot project to be a great offense right off the bat, but at least one has Drake May. So I'm going to take Trey Hendo.
Yeah, but one of them has Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, Shadur Sanders.
So many. And maybe Kirk Cousins.
I was thinking about the Browns' poor QB coach. He signed up for the job and he's like, oh gosh, I got to figure out all of the, keep all of these people happy. And, Flacco's at the end of his career. But would you say, Jason, these 2 running backs, it's closer to a coin flip than it was, 2 weeks ago where it's clearly Henderson?
For sure. I mean, I had Quinshon Judkins 2 weeks ago. I had him, I think he was my running back 7. So not that I thought he was bad. I just wasn't in love with him. And after the draft, I mean, you're talking about really a situation where you can't have much better draft capital or an opportunity. He is the Nick Chubb replacement, and he's kind of a Nick Chubb clone. Not quite as explosive, but a very big-bodied, extremely athletic back.
Did the post-pick poop help you in the rankings for him, that he was mid-poop while getting picked? I mean, to me, that makes him relatable. I like him even more.
It just shows me that he's meant to be a Brown. You know what I mean? If you're going to be drafted by the Browns on the potty, working on your own Browns, I'm going to be just proud of you for being true to your team.
It was in his DNA. He's a Brown.
Yeah.
He goes to the can and just just doing something we all do. We're all there. And then has the biggest moment of his entire life right afterwards.
I wonder if now every day when he goes to take his morning dump, if he's like, I wonder what's going to happen today. Just feeling great every time he sits down on that porcelain throne.
36 overall is really strong draft capital. And the thing that I love about Judkins is that what he was really good at in college was rushing touchdowns. We know that is basically the stickiest stat we can find for running backs, and he was actually targeted a lot on a per route basis. So he's not just a throwaway. He can't catch the ball, but probably more like Montgomery, like you said. He can do it. He can catch 35, 40 balls if he needs to. It is interesting that they took Dylan Sampson later on, who is this counter punch type player. So that doesn't worry me about this, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it hurts your projection of what you think they anticipate the pass catching utilization of Judkins. He clearly can catch the ball, but it's just if that's not what they're wanting to install him as, then it kind of hurts.
All right, Betz, you're up 107.
All right, I'm going to stick with first-round wide receiver, and I will take Emeka Egbuka at this pick. Obviously, right now it looks very crowded with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at the top of the depth chart. Obviously, they had Jalen McMillan there last year, but I think this draft pick tells you a lot about how they feel about McMillan's role in the offense. So if you're in a rebuild, I think Emeka Egbuka is a perfect pick because from a target share projection in year one, it's not going to be great, but as soon as next year and beyond, he looks great. It's a quarterback we love, a scheme we like, all those things. So Emeka Egbuka at the 107, I think, is the perfect target if anybody's looking to kind of think about their roster a year in advance, basically. Kind of like JSN, his rookie season. We saw that it might not be a fast start, but you knew the talent was there, and so is the draft capital.
I think Great example. And which is crazy because JSN went a pick after him at pick 20, and then Egbuka went 19.
Yeah, nobody saw this coming.
It's a wonderful. Nobody saw what coming. Him going to the Buccaneers.
The Bucks, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, I thought you were saying for him to be
drafted.
picked that high.
No. Just to the Bucks. It was like, whoa, they're doing this. All right.
I have come around on my love for Egbuka. Like when I watched him, I when I first scouted him, I was like, okay, this is a really solid player. I like him as a wide receiver, but I think my comp for him was like Jacoby Myers. Just really solid, always going to be there, whatever. But the more that I've seen of him, scouted him more, thought about the reality of his talent, is like he is awesome, and I love him. I would have no problems picking him. He is my number 7th ranked player here, so I would have made the same selection as you, Betz, and I think he's going to surprise everybody year one.
I hate the
year
Bucks.
One.
They're
you
smart.
hate the Bucks because they're doing great work. I think he will be a relevant fantasy player this season, and then the future is extremely bright. I'm going to probably surprise people here. I think this is the spot after those 7, and maybe yours is even the surprise for some people having Egbuka that high. I don't think it is. I think he should be there. This is where a lot of times people are going to start looking at the tight end position. You got 2 top 15 picks in the draft. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going with R.J. Harvey. I believe in Sean Payton's running back system.
We know your ranks. That's what stinks.
Yeah.
I was ready.
The listeners,
I mean,
it's like they should know if they're in the Dynasty Pass, but
that was a good segue for the listeners, though.
Right. Yes. That's who I was talking to. You know who I'm going to take every time I'm up. But R.J. Harvey is when I scouted him, I loved him. The only knock on him was his age, and maybe you could argue a little bit of the competition, but his production profile is great. His film is outstanding. There's really not a lot to dislike about him. And then you're telling me he gets high draft capital to the team that was, for me, coming into the draft, the number 1 destination, like the dream of Omarion Hampton going there or them trading up for Genty. Like that was the premier spot for me. You got a player I like, draft capital I like, and the premier destination. I don't really care that much about a running back's age so much as, I look at a running back when I draft him as I'm getting his rookie contract. I'm getting his, 4 years, and that's it. And so whatever, if he's coming up for his second contract and he's 28, I don't give a crap. I don't expect to have that anyways. I'm going to have 4 great years, so I will take R.J. Harvey.
As an ageist, a well-known ageist among this group.
The size says it all.
You are, yes.
So I feel conflicted because I usually care about age when we're prospecting. This is a different world, not only post-COVID, because we're getting a lot of people, it's like one of those seasons is gone, and then NIL. So there's a lot of age stuff I've had to work through, people.
Emotionally, like having to forgive a few extra years.
Yeah, why couldn't you finish college on time, RJ? You graduate student. But Sean Payton knows what he's doing. And because this is a lot higher, right? 60th overall is a lot higher than what we all thought. We thought he was like a fringe day 2 pick. We have to respond on a depth chart that we said was one of the best landing spots possible. And, they envision somebody who, when he runs 4.4 and he gets in space, like he can move. I do think Estime is still going to have some goal line role, but at the end of the day, it's hard to argue. And this is as high as he would go. Like I wouldn't go any higher than 108 personally, but I've seen him in this back of the first, spot for a lot of people as like, hey, I need a running back, and there's one with a draft capital there at 110, 111, 112. So Betz, any Harvey Dent thoughts?
Pretty much echo with what you guys said. It's hard to find a better fit for his skill set than with Sean Payton, and I personally am not an Audric Estime guy. So while he will get, 5-6 touches a game maybe, and then you put McLaughlin in there for a couple touches, like RJ Harvey is getting the valuable touches that we care about. So I don't really envision him ever becoming like a 20 carry guy in the NFL, but just the pass catching role, the scheme, it's an up and coming offense, really good offensive line. I think it's all there for RJ Harvey. So yeah, this 108 to 111, 112 range, wherever he falls in that, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I think you can make an argument for about 4 players at this spot. And Kyle, you mentioned pretty much the stickiest stat. It's kind of surprising, but for fantasy success for an incoming rookie running back is actually rushing touchdowns. That is one of the things that happens to project the best. 38 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 years for Harvey Dent.
Did you just use my stat as a counterpunch? Because I felt it.
Yeah.
I felt it right
that
there.
Aged hater.
Such a hater, Kyle.
It makes sense. But yeah, he'll be out of the league by the time he's 28, like Jason mentioned. just completely gone. I also another stomach punch for Mike, who is an estimate truther. You probably didn't like that at all. I'm going to take Tyler Warren. That's probably the debate we're going to have. Is it Warren? Is it Loveland? Does 4 picks matter in the draft? To me, it comes down to how does Warren translate, and I think he's more Trey McBride, and I think Colston Loveland is still, I don't know what he is in the NFL. It's clear that the Bears have a plan, but I like Tyler Warren more as a player, and I also think I don't really care about who their quarterback is right now with tight ends, so it's a coin flip for most people, but I would take Warren over Loveland.
This makes my decision easy. I thought you were going to put me in a tough spot here, so I'll take Loveland. Real quick on Warren, I agree with you on like the year 1 outlook. And part of the fun stuff with Warren is like maybe he could get some goal line carries, Wildcat type stuff, or whatever he did at Penn State.
Take out Richardson.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Is they have a mobile quarterback at the goal line. They got Jonathan Taylor, so I'm just not sure if you get that. But like for long term, and I agree with you, the quarterback of the future is not on this roster most likely. I agree with you. Like I'm not that worried about the landing spot, even though for redraft I am quite concerned about the quarterback play. For Dynasty, I'm in. So yeah, at the 110, I'll take Colston Loveland. Obviously went to a great landing spot with Chicago. The target competition is going to be what everybody argues against. And I agree. DJ Moore's great. Rome Odunze, we think, is very good. And they also took Luther Burden. But whenever a coaching staff comes in, this is the first pick of the Ben Johnson era. They take him 10th overall. It says a lot about how they plan to use him. We saw what he did with Laporta when he was a rookie, and obviously that would be the best possible outcome as the tight end 1 in fantasy. But that's how highly I think of Loveland. I think he's a very, very talented pass catcher, so I'll take him here at the 10th overall pick.
I was really hoping you took Matthew Golden and let me take Loveland
He will
here.
never
because
get picked.
Literally never. No, I'm just kidding.
I just, the pick here obviously should be Matthew Golden. He's a first-round wide receiver going to a top 10 offense. That's the pick. I'm at the 11th spot. I'm not the 12th. I'm not the final pick of the first round. He should be. I don't like him. I don't want Matthew Golden. I'm taking Caleb Johnson here. The final day 2 running back, a player I really, really liked, goes to a great spot. Najee is gone. He's wearing that black and gold like he did in college. I think he will succeed. So I'm going to take Caleb Johnson and make Kyle pretty much have to take Matthew Golden. I don't want to know my brand, even though my rankings would actually have Matthew Golden 1 spot ahead.
I know that this player will not be picked in this draft, so I need to bring this up. But in our mock draft we had, that's in the Dynasty Pass, I took Mason Taylor. And at the very beginning, I basically said, I hate this. This isn't my brand.
As soon as I saw the pick go through, I messaged Kyle. I was like, who are you? Are you all right? This is not who you would take. But it was the third round.
At a certain point, yeah, it was fine. Caleb Johnson, it's interesting because we knew that the Steelers were going to use the draft capital, right? 9 top 30 visits. That was quite a win for us, going through the process and going there's going to be somebody here. And all they have in the roster is Jaylen Warren, Kenny Gainwell, and that's all we're worried about. So a year from now, we got to figure out what the offense is. It's no guarantee that Arthur Smith is even around, but it's pretty much everything you want, right? I think in terms of landing spot.
Yeah, it's an awesome fit for Caleb Johnson at Iowa was running a ton of the zone scheme stuff, and he's not really a shifty back, but his vision is good, and when he sees the hole, he's good, and he's fast enough. Right? People kind of poo-pooed the 40 because it wasn't incredible, but he's fast enough. And in this scheme, I think he's going to work beautifully. So I love it. And they talked about the pick, and they used the word volume with him, a volume back 6 times in the presser. So I think they have a vision of what he is, and I think he's a perfect Steeler pick.
Yeah, I'm going to take umbrage with anyone who says Caleb Johnson is not fast. I mean, I get it. He had a slow 40 time at the combine. And you could point to that and say, what do you mean he's fast? He's 4'6". The dude is freaking fast when you play football. When you play, I mean, you can't watch his tape and see him run away from people all the time. I believe he hit 22 miles per hour in college, which is objectively super duper duper fast. And then it's like, yeah, well, when he took his pads off and ran in a sprinter stance, he was not that good. I don't care about that. He's a fast player. He is absolutely fast.
I think we all liked his film and thought, like, it wouldn't shock me if he's the RB3 in this class or whatever. You know, he ends up being the 6th drafted, but still got day 2 draft capital. But yeah, he has that build-up speed, you know, very like, you know, video gamers out there, Bowser, DK, and if you're playing Mario Kart.
Yeah,
build
for
it up.
sure. Little slow to start, and then good luck catching him.
Do I take Matthew Golden?
Yeah, you got to do it. He's got to be a
You have
first-round
to,
rookie
Kyle.
pick. He was a first-round wide receiver to a top 10 offense. I just can't do it.
I had the 201 in a league, and I was at the spot where it's like, okay, I'm either going to get Matthew Golden or Luther Burden. And that's where I was. Like, I was just sitting there. I think it's in Dino Jr. And I said, okay, would I be happy with either one? I go, I think I would be happy if a first-round wide receiver fell to me. I would also be sad picking him, but I think it's the right move. Like, okay, so the depth chart is what I hate the most. We talked about at the beginning of the show. That will clear up in the next year or two, and we won't be talking about these ancillary names. Hopefully,
Right.
we're still talking about Bo Melton because he's a fun guy.
I mean, is Dobbs on his final year?
Dobbs
Right
and
now?
Watson.
Okay. And Watson is borderline dead. I mean, Betz, what is the update? It was a pretty catastrophic knee injury,
Yeah, he tore
right?
his ACL in the last week of the regular season. Then you add on a few weeks until the actual surgery takes place. Like, he's definitely starting on the PUP list. Maybe he's back in November. That's kind of my outlook for Watson. But at that point, the team already has their rotation set, their playing time set. Like, I'm basically not factoring Christian Watson much, if at all, this year. So yeah, it
the
does
depth
kind of
chart is
clear up
not that bad.
pretty quick after this year. And I will say too, last year we spent, myself included, all offseason saying, well, you know, this coaching staff, they always use multiple running backs. And granted, Marshawn Lloyd got hurt and all those things, so maybe they would have. But what if this draft capital says we have our one? I don't think he's a great prospect, but what if he is? Like, I'm willing to embrace the upside case, especially at the 111, 112, where, let's be honest, a lot of these guys are going to fail anyways. So I guess I'm in on Golden at price. I'm out if anybody wants to take him earlier. But at this point in the rookie draft, this is, I agree, where he should go, and, you know, definitely feel okay taking a swing.
I want to leave room. I mean, I know that we usually talk about Golden. There might be people listening like, man, why are you guys just so negative about this player? A lot of it is, if you can't command targets in college, it's really hard in the pros. And film stuff there's 4 games at the end of the year, and that's it. I want to leave room that Matt LaFleur knows what he's doing. And I think we all respect him as a play caller, and we respect that organization of, like, the Packers are just good at their job. They've done it for years. It's a good organization. But for fantasy, what is his ceiling outcome if you're like, okay, this is where I could see him having a season where he's a top 15 wide receiver? Because I
think he's got the athleticism, and it's so wild where it's so surprising to me that someone as talented as him on a, like, skills basis can disappear so much. So yeah, I think top 15 is good.
it sounds like a fatherly talk. Like, hey, you've got a lot going for you, son, but sometimes you just don't come
You're
through.
so lazy.
Not mad,
Betz?
just disappointed. I have a tough time seeing top 15 for one of the worst round 1 profiles we've ever seen in recent years. So
Whoa. Yeah, it's the worst.
yeah. So, like, for me in fantasy, I think the best case is like back end wide receiver 2, fringe 2-3 kind of guy. I'd be psyched if I got that out of Matthew Golden.
But at least it's an offense that we like, right?
Yeah.
This isn't, Darius Hayward-Bay or Henry Ruggs. We're like, what are the Raiders?
Right.
Sorry to poke holes at the Raiders, but that's just what it used to be. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll jump in round 2. All right, recapping round 1, we had Ashton Genty go at the 101, then Hampton, McMillan, Hunter, Henderson, Judkins, Ekbuka, RJ Harvey, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Caleb Johnson, and then my glorious pick of Matthew Golden at the 112, which brings Betz at the 201.
Yeah, I'm going to take Cam Ward here in single quarterback. I think in super flex, anywhere in the 103 to 105 range, I think is fair game. But in single quarterback, the 201 feels right for Cam Ward. Has some fun tools. Like, I like that he can push the ball downfield. I think he's more athletic and mobile than his stats suggest if you kind of watch how he plays. But I definitely have question marks on year one outlook, pretty terrible skill group, and then a coaching staff that kind of needs to get things going here if they want to keep their job. So I'm not sure how it works out, but at this point in the draft, this is the first player in the real life NFL draft, so I will take him at the 201.
You can't fault anybody for taking Ward at the back of the first, early second in a one quarterback league. In Superflex, I've seen ranges from 102 in a league that I'm in to, he ended up being the 104, 105. Once again, it kind of matters based on your team construction, where you're at. But Jason, you're on the clock, 202.
This is a sucky spot. Let me just be real frank. This is where I have taken a 5-pack of wide receivers and I've shuffled them like a deck of cards, and then I deal them out, and then I grab them all back and I shuffle them like a deck of cards, and then I deal them out. And I'm telling you, this group, I can make a strong argument for each and every one why they should be the clear player drafted first of this pack, and I could make a strong, intellectually honest argument why each one should absolutely be drafted last of this group. And it's Trey Harris, Luther Burden, Jack Bech, Jaden Higgins, and I'll throw Kyle Williams, maybe even Jalen Noel in there. Like, they're all good-ish prospects in goodish landing spots with goodish draft capital. I think most people are going to throw Luther Burden there first because prior to the NFL draft, he was seen as a first-round pick. I never personally saw him as a first-round pick. I didn't like what I saw quite as much. Very talented with the ball in his hands, unbelievably good at just making stuff out of nothing. But I wasn't sure about the wide receiver skill set, the down the field routes and that. He then lands in a spot where you could say, oh, this is amazing draft capital. However, it's the same issue I have with Loveland. Like Loveland and Luther Burden mixing with Odunze and DJ Moore, it kind of gets to where it's like, that's pretty murky. I don't know who's going to emerge, but I know all four aren't going to. And they're starting at the back of the line. So I'm actually just going to take my dude. I'm going to take the guy.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
The heart wants what the heart wants. Second round draft capital, Trey Harris, who I believe is the best wide receiver of this group, going to Justin Herbert in a spot where, I can see a path where he becomes the one over Ladd McConkey. I love Ladd. Ladd was like my dude last year, almost a my guy. I drafted him everywhere. Had some wonderful success with Ladd McConkey, but Ladd McConkey really should be a team's, 2, not their alpha. And they drafted a guy like Trey Harris to hopefully come in and be the alpha that they hoped Quentin Johnston could be. If you've got to beat out Quentin Johnston and an old broken Mike Williams, that is not nearly as difficult as beating out, a top 10 last year pick in Rome Odunze, a top 10 this year pick in Colston Loveland, and DJ Moore, who is, currently the alpha on that team. So I'll take Trey Harris, wide receiver, for the Chargers.
I had this exact decision in our league. It was Harris and Burden, and we went back and forth. And I actually went against my heart, Jason. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
Where was your heart? I don't know.
My heart was Trey Harris.
Oh, and you went Burden.
Yeah, we went back and forth, my brother and I. We basically said,
that's your burden to bear.
I know. We basically said, at the end of the day, I think the Bears offense has a higher ceiling overall than the Chargers. I love the Chargers. I've always loved the Chargers. And we came back to his really young breakout age and the ways that he can kind of affect the game in lots of different ways. But I think it's a coin flip, like you were saying, Jason. I think it's close. And so Luther Burden is going to be my pick right here. I went 39th overall to the Bears, and I'm taking him at the 203.
I like it. A pretty much echo everything you said. Any order of these this 4-pack here, I think, is appropriate. I'll take Jaden Higgins as the next guy off the board. I still think CJ Stroud is good. I know it was pretty terrible last year, but the Texans pretty much told us what they think of the outcome for Tank Dell's injury, which just is terrible, by taking 2 wide receivers in the same draft. Obviously, they lose Steph Diggs too. So they're planning for life after, Tank Dell with this injury and not waiting around, which I'm a fan of how they built their team, revamp the offensive line, get him a couple more weapons, and see if they can get him back on track. So I'll take Jaden Higgins here, who interestingly is another big-bodied receiver across from Nico. I mean, those 2 towers next to each other should be fun. So I'll take Jaden Higgins here and hope he can kind of have wide receiver 2/3 production with CJ Stroud.
Revamped the offensive line, did they?
I mean, they had one
It's
goal.
definitely changed.
They said,
yes, they've changed.
we're building the culture of the offensive line. And truthfully, it probably can't get worse. I mean, it was so bad last year.
That is funny, where it's like they got rid of their most talented offensive lineman, which can't be good for offensive line that was bad. I remember years and years ago thinking with the Pittsburgh Steelers when they had a really bad offensive line, and then they made a bunch of changes, and we kept saying it can't get worse. And it got worse. And I just keep feeling that with the Texans. That's my only fear, is this offensive line just being the worst in the league. But that's the pick I would have made as well. You're talking about a 2nd-round draft capital for a big-bodied outside target. It's nice.
Revamp to give new form or appearance. So
okay, well then they are definitely revamped. It doesn't mean better, but they are revamped. Okay, so Kyle, you took Luther Burden. Jaden Higgins, Betz, you took him. So that leaves me with the 4th of the 4-pack.
Is there running backs that are considered here at all?
So I am never, almost on principle, my next running back that I like personally, and I love him, Cam Skattebo. I think Cam Skattebo will succeed in the NFL. I'm not usually a 4th-round running back draft capital drafter, but Cam Skattebo's good. And he found himself an opportunity, a place that is, he is set up for success. But I'm never going to take a day 3 running back over a second round wide receiver who I like. Like, that's just silliness. And in a lot of drafts, you're in the 2nd round, you're a competing team, you're not a rebuild, and you need a running back. And so you're tempted to do that, and you make those mistakes over and over and over. I'm going to take Jack Bech, a player who we really like, who finds himself in a great opportunity with actually a good quarterback now. Geno Smith can get him the ball. He can be the one for this team. Great draft capital. So I'll take Jack Bech here. This is where now, after that 4-pack is gone and all the 2nd-round wide receivers are gone, there's still some a lot of 3rd-round wide receivers. That's where I'll consider maybe looking Skattebo's way, but I probably have maybe one more player I'd take over him.
Yeah, the only other wide receiver that I would, you could throw in the mix is Kyle Williams, who's in the conversation here. I'm sure he's going to get picked, but I mean, the bigger news is that I actually am on the clock at the 2:06, and you guys helped me with my conversation, and yet you made it more confusing to me.
Oh, good. Eat it.
So this is you're talking about the real draft that you're in, not
the real
this
2:06.
So who's on the board?
All right, the real 2:06. So who is available?
All right, right now, my guy Jack Bech is on the board.
Run the card in.
Jaden Higgins is also available right now. I do have a soft spot for Jalen Noel, who we've talked about a lot on this podcast as well. And then the only running back, Skattebo's actually already gone, is Baishal Tutin, who would be the running back if we were to consider, but it's probably going to be one of the receivers. But Bech and Higgins feels very, very close.
Yeah, that's tough. Bech and Higgins is really tough. I mean, the better draft capital also has the better quarterback, right? CJ Stroud and Higgins had, the better situation. So that's tough.
Yeah,
I will say this. I tried to trade to the spot right ahead of you, Kyle. Today, I made an offer before he took Kyle Williams, who was not my pick, and I can tell you, who I was trading up for after you make your pick.
Last pick, I didn't go with my heart, okay? But this time, if I was going to go with my heart, it would be Jack Bech, just because we've been...
If you were going to go with your heart.
Yeah.
Are you going with your heart? What are you doing?
Make the pick.
Gosh, Jaden Higgins, 34th overall.
You're on the clock, man.
Yeah, with no timer. Just all no cares in the world. Just feeling great about my pick. Now, there's so many wide receivers that I feel like you're going to look back on this draft a year or two from now, you're like, gosh, I picked wrong. Do you guys have that feeling? That's how I always approach stuff.
Yeah.
It's like
any order of the 4 guys we just said, I have no idea which one's going to be the best pick a year from now.
Harris,
They're all good.
Higgins, Bech.
They're all good picks.
Yeah, those 4, Harris, Burden, Higgins, and Bech, those are the ones that specifically I feel like I could just take them in any order. I almost prefer to be the 4th one. It's like...
That way you don't have to decide.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jason's going to trade up to the 207 because he can get the remaining one. For this podcast, I will take Kyle Williams here as a 3rd-round wide receiver that it seems like not only did he gain steam throughout the process, but it seems like the Patriots view him as this guy can start for us right away outside. Because the depth chart's pretty thin. The Patriots are a fun team. Like you like the way that they built. They got their franchise quarterback. They got Will Campbell. They have Henderson. Diggs is just a short-term rental, but it's like, okay, there's momentum of what this offense can be. And Kyle Williams is weird because his breakout score is going to look really weird in all the metrics because technically he broke out during a COVID year. And yet, like, it took him a long time to get really elite. Touchdown totals 14 this past year at Wazoo. But came on strong, was supposed to be like a 5th or 6th round pick. Slowly but surely was going up the boards, and people were saying, like, this is a day 2 pick. But 69th overall, Kyle Williams, I'll take here at the 206.
All right.
Nice. And who are you taking in the real draft? It's time.
Oh, my gosh. I just love Jack Bech.
Just take him. There's no way it doesn't work.
I did. I took him.
All right, there you go.
Oh, that's who I was going to trade up for. You jerk.
You'll never get him.
I was going to trade up for Bech because this is the Dino Jr. where Mike and I co-manage. And Mike was, a Bech bro. And so I felt like it was just on brand. If I could hop right over you to take Bech and just hurt your heart. Sometimes, it's like we've got the rankings, right? And I talk about those 4 players. Like would I take Higgins over Bech? Sometimes. Sure. Yeah.
Same.
Sometimes not. There is not enough of a clear differentiator where you're just going to put all your eggs in one basket.
Agreed. All right. It's time for Scattaboo. 207 off the board. Here he comes.
No, I wanted
I mean, like you said, day 3 draft capital, not ideal. Landing spot, pretty good for opportunity, depending on what happens with Tyrone Tracy. And I thought it was really interesting when they were asking Brian Dable about Scattaboo. Like when you picture him playing, you're picturing all the broken tackles and all the fun plays. But like the first thing they were talking about was the pass catching role, which I thought was super interesting. His metrics as a pass catcher are off the charts, which is what I'm always looking for in fantasy. So let's go Cam Scattaboo.
I did not know that they talked about his pass catching. That is great to hear because he's obviously excellent at it.
He'll definitely need to clean up the pass protection strategy that he uses, which is just like spearing guys with his head. But as far as a playmaker with the ball in his hands,
also his running style,
also that
spear guys with his head, just get low and hit him with a helmet. Okay, well, it makes it a little bit sad, but easy on me because I really wanted to take Cam Scattaboo. Instead, I'll take Jalen Knoll. You can make an argument. I mean, obviously, the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud, they went and they took back-to-back teammate wide receivers, and in the 2nd and 3rd, you can always say, well, they spent their 2nd rounder on the guy they think is better. But really, when those two come in, they come in kind of as equals. They're just day 2 wide receiver picks that are added to this room. And I do think that with Tank Dell probably out a while, the 194-pound kind of good route runner, Jalen Knoll, who, had plenty of production, he could end up being the better pick over Higgins.
I'm a fan. 2nd highest zone yards per out run in the class behind Trey Harris. I think he just fits the NFL. Like in the same way we talk about Egbuka as you're going to help a team sustain drives and be a difference maker. I think Knoll's going to be a really good pro. You might have to wait, and that's okay. It's okay if you have to wait a year and Christian Kirk gets out of the way. I'm at 209, and the running backs on the board is either Tootin or Dylan Sampson. Like it starts to get kind of rough. The wide receivers, a couple of guys on the board that were third-round picks, Isaac Tesla, Pat Bryant. You can look at the tight ends, but I am going to be taking Jackson Dart here at 209.
Of course you are. It's your guy.
It's my guy.
You
my
and
favorite
you
guy
and Brian
in the
Daboll
world.
love Jackson Dart. I think this is fine for especially the potential
Thanks.
ability for him to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. We'll see. But he
I would have
runs.
taken him here as
yeah,
well.
he runs, and that's what we care about for fantasy. So I like it. I'm going to take Tootin. It's Tootin time for the 210 here.
Darn Tootin.
Fast, right? We love that. We like the scheme. We'll see. I've seen a lot of people say, well, Liam Cohen he did this with a day 3 running back last year, so we'll obviously do it again. I think that's a little far-fetched. Bucky's just great, and I think their style's a little different. But anytime a new coaching staff decides to replace potentially their starter or even a role player, if it's a timeshare, you have to pay attention. So Bishal Tootin is the pick here. I guess I am a huge Jaguars fan officially.
I wouldn't reach on Tootin, but I like this pick at the back of the second round. If Etienne's not going to be on this roster, if this regime, their GM said like, hey, I'm not a Bigsby guy. He wasn't the guy I drafted. But yeah, 4th round draft capital. You're starting to enter the spot where there's no other running backs with day 2. So Tootin it is, 210. Jason, you're at 211.
I really like picking players like the guy I'm about to pick in Pat Bryant. Pat Bryant was... See, here's our process, my personal process. I don't watch college football. I don't have time for it. I don't really enjoy the game, to be honest. I know that's blasphemy to so many people. I'm an NFL man through and through, and at the end of the NFL season, when fantasy is over, we start getting those names. We go scout guys. We start looking at the college prospects, and we've done that a long, long time. You know, a decade of scouting college prospects, but not watching them through the year. And so what happens is every single year, there are guys that you don't hear their name a lot that get drafted higher than you expect. And so you think, oh, someone reached on him. Well, not necessarily. I think that the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton are doing their homework much better than I am. And if they believe that Pat Bryant is day 2 pick, then I'm going to believe it. You go back and watch them after they're drafted and you say, okay, well, what did they see? And you see a really productive player, 17 touchdowns in his last 2 seasons. You also see a depth chart here that is not scary. I've seen people really talk about what a bad landing spot because you've got a bunch of wide receivers already there that are kind of a little bit ahead of him. You know, you've got my man Troy Franklin, you got Marvin Mims, obviously Cortland Sutton is the one. So there's a bunch of players there, but you know, Devon Vele. But none of these players, I mean, Cortland Sutton is old as dirt for, you know, he's going to age out soon-ish. And all those other guys I named are completely 100% unestablished guys. They're as unestablished as Pat Bryant. So I will take the guy who has good draft capital, good opportunity, and trust. There's certain front offices that I trust to get certain positions right. And Sean Payton, I like saying I want parts of his offense.
It's funny. I remember watching Pat Bryant's film and just thinking like, gosh, this is slow. Like it's just, and it's probably because I was going off of like looking at other players' film and comparing it right away. He ran a 4.61. Like that can work in the NFL. So I'm not trying to clown on him at all. He was one of 2 wide receivers to go over 3 yards per run against both man and zone. It's our boy Trey Harris and Pat Bryant. So it can work in the NFL. And I think he can start outside, maybe not in day 1, like not right away, but I think he can work his way into a role. And it's an offense we want to buy into. Like I want an ascending offense, and this is a pretty cheap price tag to make a bet on it. All right, at the 212, there's some tight ends.
Final pick.
Tight ends that I think I would go there. I could see people saying, like, give me one of these running backs. Let me just, like, throw a dart on Jaden Blue because the Cowboys. And but I'm probably going to take Turd Ferguson. That's
the new
probably
Turd
where I'm going. Turd Ferg. Yeah, I'm going to Turd Ferg because Terrence Ferguson is a Sean McVay pick who is athletic after the catch. I don't know what this team is going to be like in a year or two. If it's Stafford still around, Adams is probably going to be gone in 2 years. but I think Turd Ferguson's going to be around. So I will pick the Oregon tight end. And yeah, let's finish out with a couple of round 3 thoughts.
Take it or leave it.
All right, this is quick. Just saying, if you're in the 3rd round, here's a player you'd prioritize. Jason.
My player would be the tight end shots. I think there's a handful: the Mason Taylor, Turd Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo, Harold Fannin. This is the round to take the shots on those tight ends.
Betz.
Agreed. I'll also throw out Jarquez Hunter, who landed in the 4th round to Sean McVay and the Rams. Kyron in a contract year. I think they extend him, but we're not sure yet. And we don't even know if Blake Corum is good. So Jarquez Hunter is worth a stab, given his ability to break tackles and do all those things in a good offense. So in the 3rd round, I'm looking for Jarquez Hunter.
All right, 2 names real quick. Jalen Lane, who was picked by the Commanders, is wide receiver. That depth chart, I have no idea at wide receiver who's going to be on the roster in 2026. Like even the running backs too. Like there's so many players in the final year. And he does have some athletic measurables that I like. So he's out of Virginia Tech. And then we got to talk up Milroe. We talked about him last week. If you want to take your shot, just call your shot on Jalen Milroe as he's going to be the starter in Seattle next year. Just do it. Like at this point in your draft, is in a super flex, the end of the 2nd round, or in a 1 quarterback in the 3rd round, most of these guys aren't going to pan out. Go back and look at last year's 3rd round, and it doesn't matter. Milroe has that type of upside in the same way that some of us took Jalen Hurts in his draft in the 3rd round, just said, I don't know, Wentz is the starter, but maybe Hurts is the dude. That would be the one that I would do. If you want to get all of our rankings, once again, you can go to ultimatedraftkit.com. Make sure you check out Jason's rookie rankings. We were doing it the entire time. We were cheating, making sure that, Jason didn't pick the guys that he wanted to. So obviously he doesn't have Jack Bech because I looked at his rankings. And that's that. Next week, we'll be talking more rookies, talking more about Dynasty risers and fallers. We'll be with you all summer talking Dynasty all year long. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.